Hello again and welcome back to the Brew Bowl. Time for the round 3 summary of Series 3 of the Brew Bowl as we look through all the teams, all the standings and all the players. Let's go have a look at how this round shaped up. So first off, we'll take a look at the leaderboard. And the Camry City Scarabs are sitting still in first place, having drawn a match against the Warpstone Enslavers, who therefore have also stayed in second place, purely based on score difference there. The Gladiators and the Harbours both moved up well, with the Cradles losing a couple of spaces. Hammerers had a great increase after their win, and largely for the rest of it, it was mainly teams dropping down, with only the Pantry Raiders coming up as well after the defeat of the Scrayville Butchers, who of course are sit languishing on the bottom of the table with no wins, no draws, and 3 losses. Looking at the teams, the Ascalon Gladiators, which is of course Fohammer's team, had their win this round. They did lose one of their players to a missed next game injury. Of course, Fohammer once again forgot that he had an apothecary, or not an apothecary, but a special ability that could potentially replace that. And did also pick up Block on Smiopoly, the rehired. So once again, this team is doing very, very well in terms of its team value, and will certainly face stiff competition from any team it faces in the future, giving up such a large amount of inducement funds. Hondo the Mads team, the Axolotl Coaddles, lost one of their blockers this round to the draft, but did get Block finally onto the Corngor, something that Pondo's been looking for some time, and did bring in another blocker to replace Tackle Free. I think that name is still not updated. I think Pondo might update that name, or maybe already has, but that blocker also came with a free skill of Wrestle as well. The Death River Avengers had a shocker of a game, losing Ulod to death, losing one of their linemen to a miss next game, and then getting a relatively poor skill for them with diving catch on one of their linemen. So definitely not the round for the Avengers, but there's still plenty to go, so they still have a good chance to do well in this competition. The Endervoller Kodiaks picked up Block on their other Ulfwenar, and also has hired a new lineman who didn't come with any extra skills, but now also finally has an apothecary, so a chance to keep these players alive. And of course they have lost, I think, Valkyries to previous miss next games, so having the apothecary will help with those sorts of things in the future. The Fungus Bay Fanatics lost one of their trolls to the draft and cannot at this point in time yet afford to replace it. Also, unfortunately, picked up Fumblerooski as a skill on Quattro as a random skill, so definitely not the round for the Fanatics this round. The Hero One Harbours, which is Lawson's team, picked up Cannoneer on their thrower, and also picked up a Blitzer now, so they now have a Blitzer, catcher, and thrower, so as Lawson slowly adds more and more positionals to this team. Big Spoon's team, the Idle Hammerers, unfortunately once again have lost Rain Lewison to yet another injury, along with their new Troll Slayer, the new one was killed, and then they hired an extra one, and that one will miss the next game because of a bad management role. So definitely not, things aren't going Spoon's way, with only 2 runners as positionals going into his next match. Scarabs had their first non-win in the form of a draw, but it was a costly one. They lost 1 player to the draft, 2 players submitting this game, including one of which being one of their Tomb Guardians. And they did pick up a couple of extra linemen, but they will not be quite the same threat they have been with only 3 Tomb Guardians going into the next match. The Leichberg Knights, unfortunately, taking a miss next game on Lana Metzger, who did also pick up the skill for the team. So that will actually see the team next time around a little bit weaker than they were this time around. The Lauren Forest Drakes, Kiazlak will miss next game, one of their 2 War Dancers. They did pick up Sidestep on the other War Dancer, and also an extra lineman, so they are still going with enough players next round to field the full 7 with an extra 1 in reserve. Omar Krieg's team, the Marauders, not much of a change here. Really just picked up extra arms on one of their linemen. So there's a team which is slowly getting better as we go on and moving their way through the ranks. The Obersteyr race lost one of the Ghoul runners to the draft, and another Ghoul runner, which they then hired in, got missed next game because of a bad management role. So Did pick up short feet on the last school runner, but certainly not a great round for the race going into round 4. The Butchers still, as yet, nothing but losses, and this one was particularly bad because they lost Meathook, their Bloodspawn, to death, and then also Stealth, one of their Marauders, is missing next game, so they cannot afford to replace something as expensive as Meathook, and it's pretty hard to get a big guy with block like this, so this was a massive hit for the Butchers, who are already having a shocking season. The Slow Thicket Pantry Raiders, not much change here, just picked up Prime, one of their players. Overall had a great match against the Butchers, but we'll see if that will then be sustained going into future matches in the competition. And finally, or not finally, sorry, there's one more of this. The Warpstone Enslavers picked up Wrestle on Dave Batista. So still going without any re-rolls here. So we'll see how they do going into their future matches. Now we have finally the V-Spot Warrior Priests. Once again, not a great game for these guys, losing one of their linemen to the draft. Did pick up a new lineman, though, who came free with Dauntless. So this team, I think, is a bit of a sleeper team, which can still do quite well. Humans are sometimes underrated, but I think that this human team has what it takes to do well in the competition. Looking at the player leaderboards, no change to conversions, no change to touchdowns. The Gravemaker has now equaled Wild Dog Hannah's casualty score. So with Wild Dog Hannah no longer in the competition, the path is clear for Gravemaker to look to move ahead, especially with Rain Lewison getting no chances to play next week. Not Tiny and Rain Lewison also both made it onto the most expensive list, but no other real changes here. If you don't follow this, by the way, Red is a player who is dead, and Orange is a player who lives still, but has left this competition due to the draft. Talking about our Fantasy League, and Dynamith has now moved to the top with a strong 36 points. Lawson, who was in first place, has dropped down to second place on 32. Then we've got a very tight play for third place between Fohammer, Big Spoon, and Lord Hunger on 24, 23, 23. And then at the back of the pack, we've got Omar, Krieg, and Ponder the Mad sitting on 14 points. With 4 rounds still to play, plus the playoffs, there's still plenty of time to go in seeing how these guys go leaderboard. There's been some fantastic movements of players and some fantastic luck, so we'll see who takes home the Fantasy League at the end of the competition. Looking ahead to our round 4 draw, we have the Scarabs facing the Gladiators. The Scarabs here sitting with a tour play score of 12.7 versus Gladiators of 10.3. I think that that is not a great representation of how this game will turn out. I definitely favour the Gladiators here to take on the Scarabs, especially with the Scarabs missing one of their Tomb Guardians. Yeah, they can do some serious damage, but they just don't have the speed to keep up with some of the shenanigans that the Gladiators can pull with their hit and run player. We'll see whether the inducements have any difference or make any changes. But yeah, right now I'm favouring the Gladiators in that match. Lawson with the Harbours taking on AP with the Enslavers. Tour play puts the Harbours at 8.3, the Enslavers 9.0. So a very close match. I suspect probably for AP a very frustrating match. And for Lawson quite a fun one. And for you guys at home, I hope a fun one as well, because it's always great to see the players match up against each other, especially 2 players who frustrate each other so much. But I'm looking forward to that match. I have no idea who's going to win that. It could just come down to rolls of the dice, bad luck, good luck, etc. Then we have Big Spoon and the Hammerers taking on Pondo and the Coatls. Tour play heavily favours the Hammerers in this one, with a score of 11.2 versus the Coatl 7.6. Once again, the Coatl score is artificially reduced by the fact that Pondo does not foul. But I think that, yeah, with the Hammerers having quite a few players with tackle to slow down the Skinks and 2 runners. That being said, I mean, all the Pondo's players have at least 6 movements, so it could be a tough match for Spoon. I do tend to fall on the Dwarves' favour here, in the same way that Tour Play does, but it really could go either way. We've then got the Drakes versus the Revengers. The Drakes sitting on a score of 9.2 to the Revengers 9.4. I think that the Revengers won't have what it takes to stop the Drakes here, especially with both teams missing some players. I think it's going to hurt the Revengers more, and I think that the Drakes will come out on top of this match, even though tool play shows it being extremely close. So we'll see how that goes. For the second half of the draw, we then have the Warrior Priests going up against the Kodiaks. Warrior Priests showing a tool play score of 10.3 to the Kodiaks 8.7. I think this should be a very good match, to be honest. I think that the Namus has been doing a lot of work with Norse players playing in Lawson's Secret Blood Bowl League, which I'd love to see more about, but it's a secret. But I think that, yeah, he's really got the sort of the Valkyrie combo going on. I think the Warrior Priests can do well as well with throwing and catching too. So I think this will be a very fun match to watch, or in my case, play as well. Then we've got the Fanatics taking on the Raiders taking on the Knights. So here the Raiders are at 8.2, the Knights at 7.7. I would not listen to those stats at all. I definitely favour the Knights here. I think that he's got the speed to keep his players away from the Treemen and be all over the Halflings. And I just don't see them being able to score. I see them making it hard for Mike to score, but I think it would take quite a bit of a miracle for the Raiders to score well in this game. So I'm favouring the Knights despite what the tool play stats might say. Then we've got the Fungus Bay Fanatics going up against the Northcote Marauders. Fanatics sitting at an 8.9, Marauders at a 9.1. I'd like to pick the Marauders here. It's very close. I think that the Fanatics, I have a lot of fun playing, but fun does not always equate to good. I've really enjoyed using the Doom Diver, with Creek using Ball and Chain for the first time. The Fanatics are full of gimmicks, but they're not really full of great plays. So I think that unless things go really badly luck-wise, I'm going to favour Omar Krieg to take this match for the Marauders. And then finally, we have the Overstyle Race going up against the Scravold Butchers in our second NPC-only match. The Race sitting at 9.7, the Butchers at 10.1. The Butchers have lost Meathook, but they still have their two Bloodseekers who are Strength 4. I think this could be the Butchers match. You know, they've had a really tough time so far this season, not a single win or draw so far. I think that probably the Race is going to be the next best chance they have to take it down. I think if they lose this match, they are seriously out of contention for the rest of the season. They're just a bottom-tier team to hassle other bottom-tier teams from that point onwards. But maybe they can turn it around and have a great match against the Race. We will have to wait and see. Anyway, that is the round 3 wrap-up. So hopefully you've still been enjoying. I'm sorry this round has taken so long. You know, I moved house. We had Christmas and the New Year, and then stuffing around with things to do with moving back in my old place again. So this has just really, really dragged on. But as of right now, round 3 is done. All the NPC games are up. The summary is up. It's time for me to start planning round 4. Thank you so much for watching. Keep watching this space. There'll be plenty more Brew Bowl to come. So yeah, come back here all the time for your Blood Bowl action, or don't. Go check out the Bonehead Podcast, another great Blood Bowl show on YouTube. And don't forget, of course, to check out the AP Gaming Reel Discord channel where you can chat with all the players and all the coaches and see other shows that I and the rest of the people here are involved in. So do check it out, AP Gaming Reel Discord. Hope to see you there. Have a good day.